Well, Pat, it's really good to see you this afternoon. Thanks so much for taking time to drop by.
My joy, Fred. Always great to see you.
You know, I was just returned from a trip to Florida, and I was surprised how many tech chair we have today that didn't know the critical role you played in the start of tech. And so I wanted to sit down and make a tape of this so that we could have that, and I could carry that with me when you couldn't travel with me. You know, when I came to San Diego, you were my only hope. You were, in fact, the only person whose name I knew in San Diego. And if you'd said no, I don't know what I would have done. But what was it about the idea of tech that made you decide to give it a try?
Well, Fred, you walked in there, highly recommended, of course, by our mutual friend, Jim Newman. And so I thought, well, I'll hear what this guy has to say. And when you started in and explained this thing to me, I could hardly wait to sign. And the reason was, I was this bumbling entrepreneur, lucky enough to make a little money and keep going. Didn't know what I was doing. Was enjoying business, but couldn't understand why. And the thought of being surrounded by a group of a dozen or so outstanding, respected peers that I could call on any time for advice and counsel, it just blew my mind. I could hardly wait for you to whip out that piece of paper so I could sign it.
Well, thank you. You're very kind, and as usual, you're very modest. You were hardly a bumbling entrepreneur. In fact, my recollection is you'd been the head of every civic organization in San Diego, and you were pretty much Mr. San Diego, but you were extraordinary in the help that you gave us during those early years. Do you remember how you helped me get that first tech group started?
I do indeed. And that was right there at my desk when you walked in, and I could hardly wait for you to get through with your spiel so I could join the group and be part of it. And you said, now who would you like to have? No, first I asked who's in the group, and you said, well, nobody. But yeah, you said you have a chance to pick them out. Oh, I said good. So I remember I reached on the desk, I pulled out a yellow pad, and he said, now write down everybody you think you'd like to have in the group. Well, fortunately, as you know, I had a lot of friends, and so I whipped them out. And then you said, do you happen to have their phone numbers? And I put the phone numbers down too. And then I said, look, if we get that group, we'll have just be a heck of a bunch. And so you said, fine. You grabbed that list and took off.
That's right, and that was the only list of prospects I had. And
you signed every one of them.
Well, they were handpicked by you, as you know, to start with. But the interesting thing was I asked them each one question. I said, if we had these guys in the group, would you be a member? And they said, well, yeah, if you had Pat, especially, and the rest of these guys, I'd be a member. So I went around once, and then I called them all back, and they said, okay, they're all in if you're in, which was true. Yeah. And we picked a date, and we got started, and I don't think they've started a tech group since, which is probably because they really haven't had another Pat Hyndman to give them the right list.
Well, you know, Fred, I get invited to talk to the new tech chairman coming on board, and they always bring this thing up about marketing and all. And I said, look, it's not that hard. I know a guy who was an industrial psychologist, never sold anything in his life that I know of. He put a group together in 30 days. And if he could do that, anybody can.
Well, I had a house payment to make, and I was out of money, so I didn't really have any choice. These guys today have choices, so they don't move quite as fast as you and I did. I remember a few years later, we were growing, but very slowly.
Are you going to go away from that original point? Because I got something to add.
Go ahead.
That meeting, Fred, at my desk was a seminal moment in my life. Everything changed. I can't emphasize strongly enough. I was, regardless of what you say, I was just, I had a little personality, and and I had some gumption and went ahead and did everything, but I didn't know what I was doing. And it was just personally amazing to me how simple everything could be when you understood how it worked. And from the time you sat at my desk and signed me up in tech then, my life changed. My life changed. And I'm grateful to you every day of my life for having it happen. Getting that group of people there, getting us together, getting us working together like an advisory board for each other was just phenomenal.
Well,
just phenomenal.
And my family will be eternally grateful to you, because without you, we wouldn't have been able to make that first house payment. You know, Pat, you were a great student, and you got that company humming and got some key people in there, and before long you had some time on your hands. And you remember you came to me one day and said, Fred, you know, this is a great idea, but you're not doing a very good job of growing it. And I said, Pat, you're absolutely right. How would you like to have a chance at running this and see if you can make the thing grow? Well, you looked at me and said, I think I'd enjoy that. And the rest is history.
My memory's getting a little sharper than yours. But I had a few years as a member before that all happened.
Yes.
And then I had an opportunity to sell the company, which was great. And then I did have had time on my hands. But it always bothered me that they weren't standing in line waiting to get in to a group. It bothered me that they weren't standing in line. It was so good. So when you said, would you